Here's a really interesting question to ask yourself as a gardener. What does your garden look like naked? And by that, I mean, what does it look like right now when nothing is blooming, there's nothing green, nothing beautiful, it's just the bare bones? And that's really where we're at with the gardens this week. We are, if you will, setting the bones of the garden or the skeletal structure of the garden. And this is different for all of our spaces. It's probably going to be different in your space as well. But in our greenhouse gardens, we're really establishing these paths and establishing these areas with rock. We found this great local source for rock nearby. So what we're doing is just building up a 8 to 10 inch little row of rocks that will sort of define the pathways. Now, everyone has a different taste of what they want their space to look like, but I love rounded corners. I like the movement that that brings into the space. So I try and avoid hard angles with my garden beds. I find I'll walk through this space multiple times and just say, how do I move through this space? How do I want it to flow? Almost like water. So the greenhouse gardens are going to be almost all rock except for this really cool area that I'm going to develop with wattle. Now for the potager garden, this is a little bit different because we've already established the area with these cedar posts, and this has been like this for a few years now. The gardens around the potager are all developed in line with that same rock that we're using down in the greenhouse gardens, and we've utilized pea gravel, which is that really yummy little round gravel, for the pathways because I love the way that this looks. Probably the biggest area that we're developing as far as the skeletal structure this time of year is the new market garden. It's just taking up a lot of our time and energy to create these beautiful rows, which really serve almost like the rib cage, the skeletal structure of this garden bed. So if you'll remember, these were just shoveled together to mound the soil, but now we're going to take it a little step further so we can get them ready for planting. The market garden's bones are really fenced in to keep animals and children out, but really the beds are what we're developing because this is the structure of this space. We're doing this by creating these 30-inch beds. The reason we did 30 inches was because broad forks and bed rakes both come in 30-inch width, and this makes it really easy to develop these straight rows with an 18-inch walkway between each row. So this is kind of a multi-layered process. Last fall, we planted this area in winter rye and hairy vetch, which are both nitrogen fixers into the soil. So we're using them as a green manure this year and just turning them over right into the space. You'll hear a lot about no-till, high-till, low-till, but for this job, this was by far the easiest way for us to really cultivate this space. So we shoveled the dirt into the rows and then went back and forth with the tiller, and by we, again I mean Stuart, 3 or 4 times to really chew that in. These tilled into the soil are really going to act as a green manure, which is really great when you're establishing an area because you're trying to build that soil system and that soil ecology. Another really great way to add soil ecology, which is what we've done here, is use a broad fork. Now this was a tool I'd never even heard of until last year when a farmer friend of mine brought hers over so I could use it in the potager. But this has revolutionized the way that I garden. How it works is you bang it into the ground and use your body weight to leverage it back and forth on these 12-inch spikes that go way down into the soil, and then you reef on it and lift up the soil. The point isn't to till it, we've already done that. The point is to add oxygen down even further than you think. Originally I thought I had great soil in the potager garden. I'd been feeding it and tilling it, and mulching it and loving it. And after I used the broad fork, I realized it was only good soil about 5 inches down, and below that was just solid clay. So this tool is absolutely necessary where we live to get that oxygen to the other layer and ultimately to give your roots room to grow. After that, it's just raking it over and over and over again to get that nice, smooth surface. I mean, looking at this, it thrills me. It makes me so excited to imagine these nice, long, clean rows of vegetables being planted. And just to see the structure of it, it looks good naked. There's going to be a little bit more structure added to this space as we go on through the season. For example, the 36 raspberry plants that I just ordered, they'll be arriving soon, and we're going to create a really perennial sort of area to this market garden as well, with strawberries and raspberries and some flowers. So there's going to be a little bit of a structure there to last us even through the cold days of winter when there's not a lot of interest. We did have a minor disaster with the seedlings this week, which was kind of a setback. Totally my fault. It was a beautiful day. I put the trays of seedlings outside, some of them that are cold hardy like broccoli and cauliflower and kale and onions. And then I left them outside and it froze, and then we lost them. So having to restart some of those. And then right before we started to film this, Helen, you guys probably know Helen from my Instagram account. Helen broke inside and just trampled my little tomato starts. So I'm gonna go downstairs as soon as I finish this, try and repot them to see if I can save some of those stems. But this is just the way it goes with gardening. There are ups and downs. You kind of have to just be willing to creatively problem solve, go with the flow, and know that if you have a total crop failure one year, you can go to the farmer's market and buy some and try again next year. There is a ton of momentum right now on the farm. Things are just going, going, going. We're done lambing now. Our pig is hopefully about to farrow. We're drying up the cow so that she's ready to calve in June, and the gardens are just going gangbusters. Not that there's actually anything growing other than in my basement, but it's just this time of really establishing what spaces do we have this year, how are they gonna serve us, what are they gonna grow, what are they gonna look like, where are the bones gonna be? It's a good question to ask. What does your garden look like naked? That's what I'm working on this week, is making it look good.
Ah.